From far up in the sky, the glaciers of Greenland look like an eternal, endless and impenetrable shield of ice and snow. The glaciers are covering more than 80% of the world's biggest island. Only mountaintops and a few spots at Greenland's coast are, at least in summertime, not covered by ice. But the ice cap is receding at enormous speed, exposing large areas of rocks and rubble, which is then quickly conquered by pioneer plants. The impact of global warming is nowhere in the world as evident as in the polar regions in north and south. It is hard to imagine that these giant ice fields are disappearing at record speed due to global warming. Glaciers have always melted in summertime, and there have always been changes in size and altitude. But never since people inhabit Greenland have the glaciers retreated at such a velocity. If all glaciers of Greenland would melt away, sea levels would rise up to 6 meters globally. What sounds like science fiction has happened before, in the so-called Eemian warm period that started 130,000 years ago. That is why researchers are drilling a hole into the ice of the glaciers, almost 3 kilometers deep. With the ice core drilling project here in Greenland, scientists want to find out what caused rapid climate change in the past. In the last warm period, the Eemian, the temperature in Greenland was 5 degrees higher than today. The glaciers were almost gone due to high carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. But some parts of Greenland's center were still covered with ice. What exactly happened back then, scientists are trying to investigate in central Greenland, right in the middle of the ice shield, in the NEAM project.
The most important purpose for NEAM is to get the oldest ice in Greenland, and especially to get ice from the previous interglacial period, a warm period from 115 to 130,000 years before present. Because at that time we know that it was 5 degrees warmer over Greenland, which is equivalent to 2 degrees global warming. And to know how the climate was at that time when it was warmer, to know how big the ice sheet was at that time, and to know more about how the climate was that time is very valuable information for us if we are to understand what climate we'll get during the next 100 years.
In this trench in the glacier, Professor Dahl Jensen and her international team are drilling a hole into the ice shield of Greenland, extracting an ice core of 10 centimeters in diameter. Caught in the ice are tiny bubbles of air. They are samples of the atmosphere in the past, when fallen snow was compressed to ice. With each meter of depth, scientists are exploring more details about the atmosphere of wartime and thus about the climate and its changes.
Das Eis, das jetzt prozessiert wird, ist etwa 12.000 Jahre alt. Also ist als Schnee vor 12.000 Jahren gefallen. Und ist praktisch das Ende der letzten Eiszeit, die ja von 110.000 oder 115.000 bis vor 11.000 Jahren ungefähr gedauert hat. Diese Periode, diese Eiszeit ist damit zu Ende, oder jetzt bei der Bohrung erreichen wir sie. Wir gehen jetzt in diese Eiszeit rein.
What researchers are particularly interested in are so-called tipping points, when the atmosphere contains a certain mix of gases that leads to fast climatic changes. Scientists worry that mankind's emission of greenhouse gases can reach a point where climatic changes cannot be stopped anymore, with dangerous or even disastrous consequences for life on the planet.
And what we see is how abrupt the climate change was, how fast the temperature changed, how fast the climate indicators changed. And that's something that surprises me every time. The climate can make such a big, abrupt change in just a few years.
Despite the scientific evidence, some researchers and politicians still doubt the threat of climatic changes and mankind's responsibility for it. But the overwhelming majority of scientists is convinced that there's enough data to prove it. When global leaders meet in Copenhagen in December to discuss joint efforts to reduce CO2 emissions, they will warn that time for countermeasures is running out.
You can argue that there's always been climate changes, there's nothing new there, but there's one thing is changed, and that is that we are so many people on our world, so we've never been more sensitive to climate change. And then from my point of view, it doesn't make sense that we ourselves make changes that we're not able to adapt to.
The drilling of the ice core can only take place during the Arctic summer months and will stop at the end of August for this year, when scientists already reached a depth of more than 1,500 meters. Pausing in the Arctic winter, when weather conditions do not allow scientific work in the middle of the ice shield, they will continue in summer 2010. Then, with each meter of drilling in the ice, they will explore and examine the ice of the Eemian period in order to better understand what has triggered sudden climatic changes in the past. When global leaders meet at the climate conference in Copenhagen, it is too early for them to have results from the ice core drilling project here in Greenland. But what is happening here on the world's biggest island when it comes to climate change might be a warning for them to act and to cooperate together. Wolfgang Karg, Press TV in Greenland.